Today I'd like to discuss dealing with disappointment. Our Torah portion in Deuteronomy chapter 3, verses 23 through 29 reads, Moses is speaking here. I pleaded with Adonai at that time, saying, O Lord Adonai, you have begun to show your servant your greatness and your strong hand. For what God is there in heaven or on earth who can do deeds and mighty acts like yours? Please, let me cross over and see the good land across the Jordan, that good hill country and the Lebanon. But Adonai was angry with me because of you, referring here to Israel. So he would not listen to me. Enough, Adonai said to me. Do not speak to me any more about this matter. Go up to the top of Pisgah, look around to the west and the north and the south and the east, and see with your eyes, for you will not cross over this Jordan. But commission Joshua and encourage and strengthen him, for he will cross over before this people. And he will enable them to inherit the land that you will see. So we stayed in the valley opposite Bet Peor. Although the Torah doesn't explicitly say what was going through Moses' head and heart at the time, Moses was rejected by God in this request. After all of the service required to get to that point for Moses, this must have been highly disappointing. From what I can tell, Moses was able to handle rejection maturely. He did precisely what Adonai instructed him to do. He commissioned Joshua. He encouraged him and strengthened him to lead the people into the land, though he wanted to complete the task himself. Furthermore, from a human perspective, it would seem to be the perfect capstone on Moses' ministry. Imagine if it was Moses who led them into the land. Surprisingly, Moses does not get into a debate with God on this issue. Rather, he puts his own desires aside in order that God's purposes can be fulfilled. I'd like to consider Yeshua in Philippians 2, verses 1 through 8, which reads as follows. Actually, I'll read to verse 18. Philippians 2, verses 1 through 18. Therefore, if there is any encouragement in Messiah, if there is any comfort of love, if there is any fellowship of the Ruach, if there is any mercy and compassion, then make my joy complete by being of the same mind, having the same love, united in spirit, with one purpose. Do nothing out of selfishness or conceit, but with humility consider others as more important than yourselves, looking out not only for your own interests, but also for the interests of others. Have this attitude in yourselves, which was also in Messiah Yeshua, who, though existing in the form of God, did not consider being equal to God a thing to be grasped. But he emptied himself, taking on the form of a slave, becoming the likeness of men, and being found in appearance as a man. He humbled himself, becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. For this reason, God highly exalted him and gave him the name that is above every name, that at the name of Yeshua every knee should bow in heaven and on the earth and under the earth, and every tongue profess that Yeshua the Messiah is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Therefore, my loved ones, just as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now even more in my absence, Work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For the one working in you is God, both to will and to work for his good pleasure. Do everything without grumbling or arguing, so that you might be blameless and innocent, children of God in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation. Among them you shine as lights in this world, holding fast to the word of life, so that I may boast in the day of Messiah, that I did not run or labor in vain. But even if I am being poured out as a drink offering upon the sacrifice and the service of your faith, I rejoice and share my joy with you all. The same way you also rejoice and share your joy with me. If Yeshua had to put his own desires aside to honor the Father, if Moses had to put aside his desires to honor the Lord, how much more do you and I need to empty ourselves and deal with disappointment maturely? Most people I know are dealing with some kind of disappointment today. God's ways are beyond our understanding. Perhaps God had a reason for having Joshua lead the people into the land. Perhaps he wanted to see the coming generation prosper and knew that Joshua would only have success with the blessing of Moses and the freedom to lead without being in Moses' shadow. Maybe Moses was getting on in years, and God was sparing him from the stress of battle in his old age. In any case, we could only speculate. Yet, we can take a lesson from Moses, who was willing to put his own desires aside, even when he didn't understand. He trusted God, and ultimately his trust was strong enough to overcome personal disappointment and frustration. In the end, Moses would become the prophet with the capital P, as my grandfather would say, and the precursor for our Messiah, Yeshua. Shabbat Shalom.